Hello guys, Prophecy here, and in today's video we have a banger to cover. Kuro just dropped something huge, and this might seems like everyday infos. It might seems like something, oh, it's just a weapon and attribute infos. It's nothing special there, but there's actually a lot more that we can cover here than just what is shown here. So basically, first one we're going to go over is Buling. And this one is going to be a little bit a fast one because we don't really have much infos on what Buling is actually going to do. So because we don't have any echoes in a game that actually give us anything new about upcoming characters besides Chisa, we don't really know what Electro 4-star rectifier that is coming out can actually potentially do. Maybe it can do something like debuff effects. It can apply any debuff, or it can just be general buffer, like on a budget theme, like options, unlike Shorekeeper, unlike Verina, right? We have something like, so Buling is Electro rectifier. Electro, from my personal experience, 4-star elemental characters, they either have damage type outro buff or they have elemental outro buff. And the damage type outro buff is usually 38% amplification for either basic attack damage, liberation damage, resistance skill damage, or heavy attack damage. But there are some other units in the game. There are 4-stars like Alto, which has outro skill, saying incoming character has their aero damage amplified by 23% for 14 seconds or until they are switched off the field. And Alto, if you didn't know, is, okay, it says already here, here, aero damage dealer. So Alto is an aero unit that amplifies aero damage of incoming character. That's not really that strong in the game right now because there's not really a single aero unit that benefits from this as much as they're benefiting from other units on the roster. Because honestly, we have Chakona, we have Gian, we have Yuno, we have who else? We have Kartetia, and honestly, Gian and Kartetia, Gian does heavy attack damage, and so Mortefi, who amplifies heavy attack damage by 38%, is better. Even though he's a 4-star, he can wield static mist as well as Alto, and he gives 15% more amplification for basically the entire rotation of Gian. Similar thing to Katetia. Her best in slot 4-star is Sanhua, which is basically free, while Alto needs to be pulled, as far as I remember. So the situation here is Sanhua is very fast unit and she amplifies basic attack damage, which Kartetia does the most. And then she does liberation strike on her liberation. So we might say, okay, Alto has some use case there, but because Sanhua is already a 4-star that is for free, there is no reason to actually pick and use Alto and learn him over someone like Sanhua when they were available in the game since day one, both of them. So already two amazing DPSs in the game like Gian and Katetia, they have better free-to-play options than Alto. So Alto right there is not really the best option. So aero damage amplification is not really the best there. Even for someone like Aero Rover will use resistance skill damage amplification or something else. Maybe you can use Alto if you really wanna have some fun, but it's not really the strong option. If you wanna make your Aero Rover main DPS role like the strongest possible, you will use other units like Chakona, or maybe someone else who buffs resistance skill like Cantarella or Jaja. They buff resistance skill, so you can take advantage of that, and those coordinated attacks can actually give a lot of damage increase. So that's one thing, right? Then we have Dungeon, but unlike Alto, Dungeon is far better. Dungeon is, without a doubt, the best 4-star damage dealer in a game. Because Dungeon, she's a Havoc DPS, and she's also a hybrid because she's also having an outro saying incoming character has their Havoc damage amplified by 23% for 14 seconds or until they are switched off the field. So Havoc damage amplification for 23%, similar to Alto for arrow damage. But this one is a little bit more tricky. There's a character called Rover in a game that has 3 elements for so far. One is Spectral, one is Havoc, and one is Rover. The Havoc Rover is obviously doing Havoc damage. And if you played Havoc Rover, you will realize that he doesn't have one specific damage type. He actually has Resonance skill damage, which is decent amount. He has basic attack damage, which is very decent amount, and liberation damage, which is a huge nuke. So he has split damage type across his whole rotation and his kit. So what that means is basically that something like Resonance skill damage amplification is not really that broken on Havoc Rover, because Havoc Rover is not doing only Resonance skill damage. He does basic attack damage, he does liberation damage, and he does quite a lot of them. And what else? We have liberation amplification, something like John Sheen or maybe Yinlin. But again, he's not benefiting too much from that because he gets more mileage from having his whole kit amplified. Now we have someone like San Hua, and San Hua can amplify his basic attack damage, which is used quite a lot. But next thing I want to go over is, because his damage types are so split, and he basically, the main 3 damage types that are always rotating through his kit are basic attack damage, resonance skill damage, and liberation damage, then someone like Dan Jin with the universal Havoc damage amplification of 23% is most of the time more beneficial than dedicated one damage type amplifier like San Hua, Mortefi, Taochi, and so on. So someone like Dan Jin is good for amplifying Havoc Rover. But how does that go back to Buling? Now, from my experience, we have only one Electro 4-star in a game, and that is Lumi. And Lumi, I'm gonna be honest, she doesn't really provide that much value. Not because she's bad. Her kit is good. She gives 20% attack boost to incoming to the whole team. She gives 38% amplification to resonance skill for incoming resonator. But unlike any other character, as you can see, Dungeon outro buff lasts for 14 seconds. Alto's buffs last for 14 seconds. But Lumi, she lasts for 10 seconds. So unfortunately, that's not really good enough. And Taochi does exact same outro, but it's longer. So we can say like Lumi is not really she kind of feels unfinished from that perspective, and that is why I want to bring some focus on Buling, because Lumi, as being the only 4-star Electro, actually there is Yanwu, but Yanwu has no buffs from his outro skill. He actually has no buffs in his kit at all, besides some defense increase, but that's something else. It's not really important. The main thing is we have no unit among the 4-stars that amplify Spectral damage by 23%, Electro damage by 23%, Fusion damage by 23%, and Glacial damage by 23%. So we still need 4-stars with those 4 amplification. But again, unfortunately, that is not enough, because this kind of unit, being a 4-star, she's a 4-star. There's like 4 stars. I'm not leaking anything, or it's literally there, 4 stars. And if you go over to Chisa, there's 5 stars. So yeah, so she's a 4-star Electro Rectifier, and in my opinion, while her outro can be universal buff, I would say something like Electro damage amplification for incoming resonator will be nice. And to be honest, even if it's a general 15% electro amplification for entire team, that would be amazing. She'll be a very valuable unit, but again, she's a 4-star, so she cannot really be too good for most of the teams, because then what's the point of pulling on Shorekeeper? What's the point of pulling on Verina, or maybe a newer supports in the future if we already have a good 4-star? So, and then we start inspiring things like from Hojo games, where they're forced to power creep heavily the older units in order to keep selling newer units, because the older units were so good that people don't really have to pull for the newest units, they can just use the oldest one. But again, Buling can be very valuable depending on what she does. She most likely will do something with the debuffs. If she doesn't, I'm actually curious what they are going to do, because so far 4-stars that are electro in a game are not really as popular. Yanwu is like one of the worst in a game, because he does some coordinated attack damage and he scales off defense, so building Yanwu is very resource requiring, because no other character besides Tao Chi is not using defense as a scaling stat. So yeah, someone like Yanwu is not really used that much these days. Maybe for Jinxie, but it's only for her forte, not really anything for buffs specifically. Then Lumi, she's used, but she requires some skill expression in order to actually use her outro skill, which is kinda weird for a 4-star to be like so much trouble just to like get the outro, where there are like someone like Mortefi and Sanhua who are so consistent and optimal. So yeah, I would say Buling, from electro perspective, she might amplify 23% electro damage to incoming resonator if she's a sub DPS. If she's a general buffer, then I don't frankly know. Maybe she will increase debuffs. I think that makes the most sense. Increase the amount of frazzle, erosion, maybe some new debuffs, who knows. Maybe she supports Havoc Bane, so your Chisa will have off the release, you know, someone who she can like synergize with. But yeah, we don't really know what the Buling will do so far, but there are like some stuff that we can already tell depending on what her role on the team will be. If she's a sub DPS, she will use something called String Master, and it's a weapon right here. So that weapon at the max level gives 500 attack on a base. It's 36% critical rate and 500 attack. Those are like base stats. So crit will not be an issue here. And there is increased damage bonus by 12% when dealing resonant skill damage, which, you know, depending on her damage type, if she's like completely one damage, mono damage type only, or she's like versatile, this can be very useful. So when dealing resonant skill damage, increase attack by 12%, stacking up to 2 times, so 24% free attack. This lasts for 5 seconds. Equipped resonator is, well, when the equipped resonator is not on the field, increase their attack by additional 12%. So basically what this means is that she gets a lot of free attack. If she's a sub DPS, she gets some damage bonus, she gets a free 3d6% critical rate and 500 attack. So that's very good if she's a sub DPS. And String Master is the best rectifier in the game. The proof is Cantarella is a sub DPS in the game, and she benefits from String Master quite a lot. Anchor is basically her best in slot weapon. Phoebe, amazing on String Master, still does a lot of damage. Frolova on String Master, it's almost non-existing difference between her signature and this weapon, but again, her signature is better. I don't know why Verina is here. She uses another rectifier we're gonna talk about in a second. Then Yinlin, which is also, that's her signature. She's a owner of String Master, so obviously. And Jaja, who is also another sub DPS coordinated attack user that fully benefits from the weapon. So yeah, with that being said, this weapon is very valuable. So if it works on Buling, that's just another unit that's going to very benefit from String Master, because every rectifier user in a game can benefit from this weapon besides Verina. They probably put Verina because her healing scales off her attack stat, so that's something to keep in mind. It's not really that she's not doing damage, she's a support on the team. But yeah, overall, String Master is an amazing option. Like free 12% damage bonus, 24% attack for literally free, and whopping 36% critical rate. That's crazy. Next weapon will be Variation. And this is the case if Buling is more on support side, and I think they will most likely do this kind of thing because there's no reason for more sub DPSs, because we already have all the damage types, maybe for attribute damage amplification, but at this point we don't really benefit from this kind of unit as much as we would before. So yeah, right now even someone like Zhang Yinlin are struggling. I don't really see how Buling can like give us any any good results if like premium Electro team is not really doing that great. Maybe for Augusta, but again, like just for Augusta, just for like few patches and then like being almost unviable. Let's be real. So then this weapon Variation is one of the best, if not the best 4-star weapon in a game. And here's why. Variation gives you energy regen 51.8% and gives you okay attack stat, but there's one important thing about Variation, and it's skill. When Resin skill is cast, just casting, you don't need to do Resin skill damage, just cast your Resin skill. And from my experience, every single character in a game can cast Resin skill. So no Rectified user in a game should have problem, and so goes for Buling. And then when you cast Resin skill, restore 8 Concetto energy. This effect can be triggered one time every 20 seconds. This is essentially once per rotation you get extra 8 Concetto energy when casting Resin skill on the user of this weapon. So if Buling is more like team buffer than like sub DPS that buffs only one dedicated unit, then I can see that this weapon will be also used on Buling. So yeah, that'll be for Buling. If she's a sub DPS, she'll use String Master, will be her best in slot. If she's a support, team-wide sustainer, buffer, and or amplifier, whatever, Variation will be her best in slot. So these are like two weapons you can keep in mind. Even if she's a sub DPS, I think Variation will still be amazing for fast rotating and stuff. We'll see how much Concetto she requires, but again, if she's a 4-star, unless they want to add more bricky units into the roster and make you like have less fun while pulling, I think she's gonna be optimal. They learn from past mistakes. They made Sanhua, they made Mortefi, some of the best 4-stars in the game, if not the best, and so they most likely know what they're doing. And I'm gonna be honest, Electro Rectifier, yeah, I can't wait to see what they're gonna cook up with this one. So yeah, that's it for Buling. Now let's go over someone even more important, and that is, let's be honest, Chisa gives even more actually info on her kit than Buling. For Buling, we don't really know much. She's Electro Rectifier, that's almost feels completely random, but Chisa, however, we already have early information. And let me recap the information we know so far. From the Leviathan Trenodian 4-cost Echo, which is currently used on nobody, it's on this set, which has no synergy with this Echo effect whatsoever. Let's reread this effect so you can know what it does. Summon Horizon, blah blah blah. This is basically Echo damage type of, dealing. So summon Collapsing Horizon, dealing 2 instances of Havoc damage to nearby enemies, obtaining a Core of Collapse for 15 seconds. What this means is this is some kind of debuff, and we'll see what it is exactly. But last, Core of Collapse deals Havoc damage. When active Resonator in a team, deals damage. So this will most likely be for Chisa on release, and this will most likely, as we have with most of our Echoes, it'll be on 2 sets. It'll be on this set, so you can cry when you get the wrong Sonata set on this Echo when you farm it, and it'll be on a new Sonata set, where you'll be very happy for getting this Echo, but then if you get a bad main stat, you will cry again. But again, the thing is, this says the effect can be triggered once every 0.5 seconds up to 8 times. Enemies with Havoc Bane take 100% more damage from this effect. So we can already see this echo benefits from your enemy having Havoc Bane being inflicted on them. You might ask, how do we inflict that? And I'm gonna be real, Havoc, Broadblade, we just got this echo recently. I think it's pretty fair to say this will have amazing synergy with Chisa. So yeah, she's the newest debuff character that is coming out. That's confirmed at this point. Let's not try to cope. She's definitely 100% debuff character, inflicts Havoc Bane or has something to do with the debuff system. So yeah, let's go on, continue, and this is the juicy part. Resonator with this echo equipped in main slot gains 12% Havoc damage bonus. Guess what? She's a Havoc. And 12% of Resonance Liberation damage bonus. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, changes a lot. This changes everything because Chisa's weapon is a Broadblade. Let's be honest, guys. This is obviously going to be her best in slot echo, and it's going to be on a newer Sonata set, which most likely will be 3-piece set. There's some other choices when it comes to Broadblade, and we already have a history of you know, Broadblades that are buffing liberation damage. And those are Lustrous Razor and Wildfire Mark. Let's go over Lustrous Razor. This one is actually the Broadblade you can get from standard weapon banner by pulling with standard pulls and stuff. From my honest experience, do not pull for this weapon, you will regret it. Do not pull for this weapon unless you really want to get Chisa and you're veteran player. You already have already have Emerald of Genesis, you have Static Mist, because those weapons give crit stats, which are one of the most important stats in the game. Do not pull for Lustrous Razor unless you have those other two weapons I just mentioned, because this weapon doesn't really work besides few characters in a game, and it's more like a cope weapon than like beneficial weapon. But depending on who Chisa is, and there's some past characters that already were liberation damage dealers and can give us some clue on what Chisa potentially might be. So these weapon stats are as follows. Base attack is 587, which is pretty big. Substat is basically its second primary stat is 36% attack increase. Wait, I'm sure it's 33%, but okay, whatever. It's a over 30% attack increase. Then increases energy regen by 12.8%, which is very good, especially because if this is true, she's a liberation damage dealer, and with liberation damage dealer, you most likely will use your ultimate very frequently. So getting energy regen by 12%, this is almost the entire substat that you will need for your Chisa. And depending on how much resonance energy she requires, she will have some energy requirement. For example, 125% energy regen should be the best way to go about it. I would say for Havoc pieces, if you have energy regen on your Havoc Eclipse or Midnight Whale or any Havoc set, basically 2 pieces, get them ready for Chisa, some liberation rolls, some energy regen will be amazing for Chisa, so get that ready. So yeah, increases energy regen by 12.8%, which is amazing. When resonance skill is released, increases resonance liberation damage by 7%, stacking up to 3 times. This effect lasts for 12 seconds. Yeah, the duration is not the best. Damage bonus altogether is 21% at R1. This is not really as broken as it might seem. It's okay, it's not the best. From my personal experience, this is supposed to be made for Calcharo, but even Calcharo doesn't really benefit from this. It mostly benefits from attack percentage because his raw damage can be very decent at current meta level, but I'm gonna be honest, this weapon I will definitely trade for this weapon any day of the week. And potentially Lustrous Razor can be used by basically every Broadblade user in a game. And one of the best users are Lupa, Lumi, and Calcharo. So this weapon is a 5-star limited weapon. It's from this character here called Lupa, and it says as follows. Base attack is same as Lustrous Razor, 587. Then second primary stat is a critical damage by whopping 48.6%. This is huge because critical damage in a game where damage is really important, obviously, it's a very important stat. Basically what you're trying to do in Wuthering Waves, 70 to 75% critical rate is a bare minimum to hit more consistent crit. And when you hit those crits, your damage, how much your damage is going to get multiplied by, depends on this stat right here, critical damage. So critical damage is very important and very strong stat in Wuthering Waves. So that's one thing. So having as much critical damage as possible is definitely beneficial for your character, and a good amount of attack is amazing. So what is the skill of this weapon? Increase the attack by 12%, which is okay. Performing intro skill or liberation, basically casting one of those, increases resonance liberation damage by 24%. Already by whopping 24% using one action, where here you need to use 3 actions, specifically release 3 resonance skills in order to stack up these to 21%, and this is basically 3% higher damage. So more damage, a bit more attack, and yeah, I'm gonna be honest, this weapon seems way better than Lustrous Razor. And so for Calcharo, this weapon is better. Someone might say, okay, but the attack increase is way better. Here's the thing. Using this weapon makes so you can reach over 300% critical damage, and when you crit, this and this combined, 300+% critical damage combined with 24% resonance liberation damage, is way more damage than Lustrous Razor with these stats. Because with these stats you can reach 70 to 50 to 60% critical damage, but with this mark you can go all the way to 300% critical damage and 70-75% critical rate. And with this extra damage bonus, which is 3% higher than the other one, it's literally a better option. So yeah, from that one, I would say this is an amazing weapon. But there's another part of this weapon that is very important to have in mind, and it's dealing heavy attack damage extends this effect by 4 seconds up to 1 time. Each successful extension gives 24% fusion damage bonus to all resonators in team for 30 seconds. Effects of the same name cannot be stacked. And here's where I have some prediction. It depends what Chisa does. And if she's solely a support character, now she might still do some damage. But again, if she's more of a sub DPS, like Yuno, then I would say Chisa might be amazing on this weapon. She also might be decent on Lustrous Razor, because again, this weapon is not bad. And to be honest, it's not really a terrible option, but there are definitely better options than Lustrous Razor. It's not really the best pick from the standard, but I would say from perspective of choices, how much choices does she have on the release? She has some 4-star Broadblade. I would say it's a decent. There's one 4-star Broadblade that I will keep in mind in case. So yeah, this is the weapon I will keep in mind if you want to pull for Chisa, because as we know, she's a Broadblade. So basically what you want to prepare before Chisa's release, and this will honestly be amazing for your account long term if you don't already have, is a Discord. This Broadblade 4-star is one of the best 4-stars across all the Broadblades, and the reason why is energy regen, huge energy regen boost. Rarity is a 4-star, and the skill is basically the same as variation rectifier, and it goes as follows. When a resonance skill is cast, restore 8 concerto energy. Concerto energy is basically the energy you need to fill up before you can switch to another character and activate the outro buff of your character. So in order to fill that as fast as possible, you want as many concerto energy as possible during your rotation in order to switch out as fast as possible. And usually this code is used on sub DPSs and supports. They're like only here to apply buffs, and the reason why you wanna fast rotate on those units, because your main damage dealer does the most damage, right? And in a hyper carry rotation, you use your main damage dealer to do the most damage, and so every buff that you apply from your sub DPS and support, you wanna give those buffs to your main DPS as fast as possible in order for the unit to do the most damage and for your team DPS to not drop. So fast rotation depends on how much concerto you're getting during your rotation, and this ensures that you can close your rotation on your character much faster. So if Chisa is not doing too much damage, then something like Discord is a perfect option for Chisa, because Chisa will have a lot of energy to cast her ult, which is, again, she does liberation damage and she's a Havoc user. So liberation damage means her ult, and her ult requires resonance energy, and guess what? This gives a lot of energy regen for the resonance energy. So 51% extra, mostly depending on her resonance cost, she will most likely need a lot. If she has something like 150 resonance cost, or maybe if she has resonance cost of 175 like Shorekeeper and Verina, then she will need something like 240, 250 ER, like energy regen, and this will be a very amazing beneficial weapon. And extra concerto cannot hurt, it can only speed up your rotation, so it's gonna be amazing for Chisa. So Discord will 100% be one of the best options for Chisa on release as a 4-star, right? If she's a DPS, then I would say if you're owner of a Wildfire Mark, or maybe, you know, if you're owner of Lustrous Razor, I think you're lucky, because she'll most likely have her signature, but depending on how locked her signature is and only soul made for her kit, I don't know how good her Broadblade will be. So honestly, it does look cool, but with the recent designs, even Lupa here, like liberation bonus damage bonus you're getting 24%, it's for 6 seconds, and dealing heavy attack damage extends it for 4 seconds up to 1 time. So the problem is you need to deal heavy attack damage, so it's already slightly more clunky than using any of the older weapons. But there's no older weapon besides Lustrous Razor, which is already a bit clunky, because unless your character can cast 3 resonance skills in a row, you're not getting full benefit, which is again less than half benefit from this one. And this weapon being from Lupa, I mean, it's only self-explanatory. Lupa is another Broadblade resonance liberation damage dealer, and here's what she does. In her kit, she usually, basically her role is a sub DPS for a team. And she's not only sub DPS for one unit, she's basically a general buffer for entire team. She gives attack percentage, defense shred, she gives damage bonus. So she's an amazing character, and her weapon on top, what it does is each successful extension, which is basically part of her kit to use heavy attack, it extends liberation damage bonus, but also it gives 24% fusion damage bonus to all resonators in the team for 30 seconds. Basically how this weapon is used in monofusion teams with Lupa. And so Lupa, obviously because she's someone who this SIG is for, this is her SIG, she benefits a lot from this weapon. And she's a liberation damage dealer, but she also doesn't really do that much damage in the first place. If similar thing goes for Chisa, what ends up happening is that Chisa might be in a similar situation where Chisa doesn't really contribute too much damage to the team, but is amazing buffer. And so, depending on how versatile her kit is, if she can actually be slotted in some fusion teams, then using Wildfire Mark will be amazing choice, like right here. This means that casting Liberation or Intro skill with Chisa, and Chisa will most likely cast Liberation damage. She gets Liberation damage increase, which is her damage type, as we saw before, and for 6 seconds, then she can deal some heavy attack damage in order to get extra 4 seconds. If she's able to do a singular instance of heavy attack damage, then I'm gonna be honest, she can easily buff your entire team for 30 seconds with 24% extra fusion damage, which is pretty good. If Chisa can proc Wildfire Mark, this weapon right here, Chisa might be more free-to-play friendly than we might think. She might be more budget friendly, let's say, because that's not really free to play. In order to have this weapon, you need to pull for it, so you need to save for it and stuff, which is free. But and again, if you have Lupa right now, I would say you can risk it. In the worst case scenario, if she cannot use this weapon, she will for example, if she cannot buff with this weapon, at least she can use Liberation damage bonus. But if you have Lupa, I would say definitely pull this weapon if you don't have it. It can potentially be slotted on your Chisa, and she does Liberation damage from this echo infos right here, Havoc damage bonus and Liberation damage bonus, and she's a Havoc user, so probably she does Havoc damage, Broadblade user, so she can probably potentially use Lustrous Razor, get some benefit from this, and get some benefit from Lupa's weapon a lot. So I would say, if you have Lupa, then 100% go for this weapon if you don't have it. If you don't have Lupa, you can play more safe. If you can get at least one copy of Lustrous Razor, get one copy, you can level it up, but I think it's not the best option. But again, you can get one copy of Lustrous Razor, save your materials, and if Chisa ends up being doing multiple resin skill castings during her rotation, then Lustrous Razor can still be quite valuable to her. And if she's not supposed to do too much damage, then having more or less critical damage, critical rate is not really a big issue for her. It should be okay. So yeah, I would say, yeah. So let me know what you think about this character. If you will pull for this character, if you will get your, do you have Lustrous Razor, do you have Wildfire Mark? Because these two weapons are going to be amazing alternative options that can potentially go even further in Chisa's kit. Because yeah, if she can actually deal heavy attack damage after casting Liberation, she can still do heavy attack damage with her heavy attack. This means that she can activate the team-wide buff for fusion damage, and if she has enough damage to be a good double DPS partner, I'm gonna be honest, she might be played with someone like Chang-Li, who also buffs Liberation damage with her outro. So I'm gonna be honest, this character using this weapon to buff 24% fusion damage bonus for Chang-Li, and in return Chang-Li amplifies her damage by 25. So yeah, I think this character is going to be phenomenal so far from what can potentially happen. But yeah, being a Broadblade and Havoc gives some wild potential builds and some wild value going forward. She's going to be amazing unit, I can already tell. Being a Broadblade, it's somewhat beneficial, but being a Havoc, yeah, someone like Danjin can be very useful, and this literally basically proves exactly what her kit is gonna be based around. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you find this informative, and if you do, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below what do you think about Chisa's role. Will she be main DPS? Will she be a sub DPS? Or team-wide support for debuff debuff team. Let me know in the comment section below, and see you in the next video. Bye.